Hey, 6th grade. Today we're practicing graphing equations. You will need to substitute values for x. And you really can pick any value you want, but if you're going to graph, you really need to look at your grid and say, well, here's my x line. What are the numbers for this x line? It looks like the smallest number, the least, is 0, and the greatest is 12. So if I'm picking numbers for x, I'm not going to pick like 23. Or I'm not going to pick a negative number, which would be silly because we haven't learned those. But you really need to pick a number between 0 and 12. And some numbers are going to work better than others. So let's try this out. Our equation up on the top is y equals x plus 3. You'll notice that I have it also here in this middle box. This is where we're going to evaluate the equation. You get to pick the numbers you want to substitute. So I'm going to pick 0 for x. 0 is a pretty good number. It doesn't always work, but most of the time it does. So where this x is in my equation, I'm going to put a 0 right there. And then I'm going to keep the constants, the plus and the 3. I'm going to rewrite them. You cannot change the order. Y is going to equal the answer to this problem, 0 plus 3. Well, that's really stinking easy. 0 plus 3 is 3. The next box over, where it says x comma y, you need to put in parentheses first the x value and then the y value. Well, we just figured out that y was 3, so I'm going to write y second, because in the alphabet, x, y, z, x comes first, and we made x be 0. So then I'll put 0 underneath x. I'm going to graph this point. I'm going to find where x is 0. That is this line going straight up and down. If I move that over 1, do you see that there's where x is 1, because there's the 1 on the bottom? And then x is 2, x is 3. So this purple line is x is 0. And we need y to be a value of 3. So now I'm going to make a horizontal line going across. And do you see that? That crosses at x is 3. Where they intersect is where I'm going to put my first dot, right where they meet. Great. Now I'm going to pick another number. I need to pick something in between 0 and 12. I could pick 1, but do you see how close together these numbers are? I'm going to pick something a little further over. Let's pick 4. Again, I can pick whatever I want. If I wanted a decimal, I could pick a decimal as well. But I don't think that would be a very good idea because it's hard to graph a decimal. 4 plus 3. The only thing that has changed is this x value. Do you notice that y equals is the same and plus 3? All right, 4 plus 3 is another pretty easy problem, is 7. So in parentheses, I now have 4, comma, 7. Okay, let's graph that one. I already have x is 4, so now I'm going to grab my red line, my horizontal line, and find where y is 7. That's the up and down, and make another dot. Great. Anytime we want to graph an equation, we really need 3 dots on our graph. Okay, don't copy this next one, but just watch, right? Don't write it down, just watch. Remember how we could pick x is 12? Actually, I think this one will work. Never mind. You can actually copy this one down. X is 12. All right, I'm going to write down 12. And I'm going to write in y equals 12 plus 3. Again, the only thing that has changed is this x value. Everything else is exactly the same. All right, 12 plus 3 is 15, which means our coordinate pair is 12, comma 15. And I will graph that one. All right, so x is 12. Here we go, x is 12. And the y line is 15. Cool. At this point, you will grab a ruler so you can connect these 3 lines with connect these 3 points with a perfectly straight line. It has to be a ruler. I will not let you pass the mastery check if you don't use a ruler. I don't have to use a ruler because Notability lets me do a perfectly straight line. Do you see how one straight line connects all 3 points? If it didn't, you made a mistake. Then you would need to go back and check your arithmetic in the table. Then you add an arrow because you could use this equation for numbers that are bigger than 12 for x. You could put in 20. That would be 20 plus 3. And here's why I had originally said don't copy. It's because I thought it wasn't going to be on the graph, right? So this bottom one, I didn't think 12 comma 15 was going to be on the graph, but I forgot that y went all the way to 16. But if we use 20 plus 3, then we would have the coordinates 20, 23, and you can see that that is not on the graph. That's why you have to have the arrow. I also want to remind you that any spot on this line is a solution. So you don't have to pick whole numbers. I could have picked like a fraction or a mixed number. I could have picked 2.5. I can put 2.5 here. It's not as easy. This one isn't terribly difficult. Y equals 2.5 plus 3. Well, 2.5 cookies plus 3 cookies is 5.5 cookies. So that means my coordinate would be 2.5, 5.5. 5.5, 2.5. Could I graph this? Yeah, quite honestly, we already have. Let me show you. Let's grab those lines again. Make a perfectly straight line and make another perfectly straight horizontal line. That's not perfectly straight. Perfectly straight horizontal line. Okay, I'm going to move this purple line to 2.5, right in between 2 and 3. Looks pretty close. And then I'm going to move the red line to 5.5, right in between 5 and 6. And would you look at that? All 3 lines connect. That's because this answer is already on this line, because this line is like an infinite number of little dots connected, which makes it be a perfectly straight line, right? Everything that you can potentially put for x that is in between 0 and 12 will be on that red line that I made. This is one of the really cool things about graphing equations. All right, your job is to finish. Check your answers on the answer key that is by the front door.